Welcome to Crypto for Christians, where we look at the new technology of blockchain and cryptocurrency and how it applies to Christians and how we can look forward to being able to implement it into our lives. Now, Alex, last time I really enjoyed our discussion last time. You told us a lot about the most well-known cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin. And then you also mentioned that it has its good uses, but also some limitations. And I liked how you compared it to a Model T Ford, how even though it was many times better than a horse and carriage, that even better car designs have been introduced later. And of course, now no one really wants to drive a Model T, right? Now, we also talked a little bit about smart contracts and how oracles are able to provide verification information to those contracts. Now, I'm sure there's some viewers who are like me and they're still trying to understand how that all is going to work. But it is definitely exciting to think about how there can be a way to actually automate contracts to ensure that both parties are holding up their end of the bargain. So I thought that was very interesting. Now, the other point I wanted to make was that, to kind of go back to the car analogy, the Model T and many older cars right now wouldn't be considered road legal, right? Because of all the new safety features that are required. Do you see anything similar to that happening with blockchain technology? And I know the technology is evolving all the time, but just help us to get up to speed on that.
I really will, Rick. First of all, it's always great meeting with you, and I'm always glad to have the opportunity to talk about these things. And as far as your specific question, I really think it pertains directly to what's going to be happening in the crypto space. And so the easiest way to think about it is probably how we used to access the internet through a 55 kilobyte modem. And by the way, it was great. Let me tell you, you could send emails all over the world. You could access some information sometimes that was available in certain libraries that were connected. They had a portion of information that you might be able to access over your modem. You might be able to obtain a little bit of news. There was a little bit to do on the internet, and we loved our little 55K modems. That was an important little device, to do the dial up and everything. And I certainly those, and I did use it. Now, of course, what we all realize now is that the internet traffic has just exponentially, it's thousands and perhaps probably millions of times faster now than what it was when the 55K BPS modem was something that we were using. Today, you can't buy something on eBay with a 55K modem. I mean, you certainly can't stream a video like this one or do any of the things we take for granted on the internet because there's just so much more usage. Well, you were exactly onto something when you talked about how, a Model T wouldn't be street legal and a 55K modem is worthless for today's internet. And this is what we're on the cusp of right now. Now, we're not there yet. And that's what makes this a very interesting opportunity time for people who are able to tune in and understand what is coming. And I want to be clear with folks that I am a blockchain enthusiast, but I'm not necessarily a blockchain proponent. I'm not trying to sell anybody on blockchain or convince you that it's a good thing. In fact, one of the reasons I love this show is because we're here from a Christian perspective to ask, is this a good thing? There could be some downsides to some of this. However, the thing we have to remember about blockchain is that this is an extremely powerful technology that is coming. It's actually already here, but it's at the 55K BPS stage. This is at the 55K modem stage where, we have all kinds of neat tricks happening. We can transfer value with Bitcoin, and we can create some interesting financial transactions with smart contracts. But this is just the minuscule tip of the iceberg compared to what is coming on blockchain. Blockchain is going to be a part of our everyday lives. We're going to be interacting with the blockchain multiple times a day, many times because we're choosing to, but other times because oracles are simply keeping track of us for the purpose of future transactions that we will want to conduct on the blockchain. So this technology is coming, it's exploding, and the upside potential of it is beyond our comprehension. In fact, one of the things that I hope we can successfully do on this show is contemplate the changes that will be coming and how we want to respond based on our Christian values, based on the things that we hold dear. I do have some worries that if we're not careful about that, the technology will take over and suddenly, we won't have some of the things that we definitely want. Now, that has already happened with the expansion of the internet, okay? So I will just say the word privacy. Privacy is something that we used to take for granted in the United States and other developed nations. It's written into our Constitution, and certainly we would have private time where no one else is watching. Well, the extent to which we're now being surveilled by our smartphones, by our computer activity, by our credit card transactions, there are computers that are devoted to following us around and learning about us. Now, that starts to sound like an oracle, but it's not. This is a centralized company, something like Facebook or Google, which is developing a computer emulation of you so that it can sell you products more successfully in the future and derive other value out of your own existence. And you don't really have a choice in the matter. If you carry a cell phone with you, your location is tracked. It's not always followed, but that information is recorded and stored every single day. And it's the centralized entities that make that necessary. In other words, we depend on Google and Apple and Facebook and the other tech giants like Microsoft for all the goods and services that we utilize through the internet, Amazon.com, okay? But they're centralized entities, and so they have this interest in tracking you potentially against your will. What's exciting about blockchain is that it will become possible to become private again. And this is something that I do intend to advocate for on this show. I'm going to be a very strong privacy advocate throughout the development of the blockchain revolution. And I'm going to be asking folks to favor programs that are able to provide privacy. I'm going to be recommending those programs. I personally will be buying some of those programs. And I'll be sharing with others how to make those decisions and how to even do some of those purchases. Now it happened, Rick. We never get too far in the show before I mention something about buying cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency is basically the financial fuel that makes the blockchain work. So this is the time when it's time for me to mention that we're not financial advisors. We're not giving investment advice. If you have an interest in investing in blockchain technology, I strongly recommend that you talk to a qualified, certified financial planner. What we're here to do on this show is just educate and potentially entertain and help people understand what is happening with blockchain, but we don't give specific investment advice. Back to your original question. So here we are at the expansion stage, and we're using 55 kilobyte modems. One of those modems is Bitcoin, and it works just great. Thank you very much. Transfers value. We talked about it last time. We've also got another, maybe it's a 256K modem, the Ethereum blockchain. On that one, you can run smart contracts and do some of the things we talked about last time. And they're improving that one. They're going to build more into that modem, and there's ways to install other modems around it so that it'll work faster. However, there are big changes coming. So Ethernet cables are coming to the blockchain world, and they're coming out now. These are built from the ground up to be what are called layer one solutions. These are new blockchains. These aren't side chains on Ethereum. They're not connected to Ethereum at all directly. They're independent blockchains that are built better from the ground up. And a good metaphor really would be an Ethernet cable or a T1 cable, Google Fiber, something like that, where you're talking about from the ground up. The moment they install it, the capacity is massive. It's exponentially larger than the Ethereum blockchain. You can measure Ethereum blockchain transactions. They can take multiple seconds, 15, 20, 60 seconds to close a transaction, whereas these new blockchains are running thousands of transactions per second. And so it really is from the ground up, right from layer one, a much better solution. A couple of examples of these would include, for example, the Solana blockchain, the Algorand blockchain. There's Tezos also, which has some really good layer one technology. So these are all ground up second generation blockchains. Now, second generation brings up, well, are there any third generation blockchains? And the answer is that there are. One of them is Polkadot, which has a very unique design. It was actually designed by Gavin Wood, who was one of the original designers of Ethereum. And then, of course, is the Cardano blockchain. Now, Rick, I know that you know that I love Cardano. I am a Cardano bull. I think that the project is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen outside of the proper Christian world, if you will. I believe that there are actually a lot of Christian values embedded in the Cardano design and in the Cardano rollout plan, in the white paper, and also in the timeline that they have. And I'm sure folks are skeptical about that, but I'm here to prove it. So whereas this is not an explicitly Christian blockchain, okay, this is probably a very agnostic technical piece of computer technology is what it is. However, it really is designed to feed the poor, to bring health care, to heal the sick, to connect people that wouldn't otherwise be connected, to give people a sense of actual identity, things that I think will sit very well with Christians when they research the Cardano blockchain. And this is a built from the ground up solution. So the Cardano blockchain is designed to run thousands and thousands of transactions every second, much, much faster than Ethereum. And of course, you can build those side chains on Cardano also. So you can build side chains that will make it even faster. I am of the opinion that these newer generation 3, layer 1 solutions may well make Ethereum a thing of the past. It may not happen right away. It may not replace everything immediately. And you may even recall a time when you might have heard that your neighbor got a faster internet, but you didn't switch over to it yet. Maybe you hung on to your 55K modem. It was still working okay. And it didn't matter back then so much because there weren't that many things to do on the internet either. The 55K modem worked fine for, email and a few other kinds of things you would do on the internet. Well, the same way, the blockchain space isn't really that big yet. In other words, I would say perhaps 1% of computer activities are currently using blockchain technology. I expect that number will be 20% in 2 years to 4 years. And at some point, it's going to be 80 to 90%. And it will be because people demand it. And it will also be that way because for poor people, for people in developing nations, it's the only solution that solves so many of the problems that they have. So if you're interested, Rick, I'd like to take some time just to talk about some of the projects that are going on with Cardano. I know I've mentioned them a little bit in previous shows, but I've learned some more since then about some new interesting projects. And also you were talking about how there's a certain kind of safety that is created by a blockchain. A blockchain creates what we call secure transactions. They're also verifiable transactions. So all kinds of things that happen on the internet, like catfishing, if somebody's pretending to be, I don't know, your long lost brother-in-law and they're in trouble and they need you to send money or something like that. These kinds of things are prevented at the base level of a good blockchain. So right at layer 1, what you're going to have is a digital identity that confirms who you actually are. Now, you don't have to reveal that identity to anybody. You're in total control of it. But if you did want to prove to somebody that you really are this legitimate person, they can look at the blockchain and see, oh, I do see essentially who this guy is. They may not even know your first and last name, but they will understand the types of transactions you participated in before, and they'll know that you're trustworthy for this type of transaction that you're conducting now. And you will also have certainty that if they do something illegal in a transaction, that will be recorded. And you can actually use that information that's recorded to prosecute the person, get your money back. And all of that installation, it's very much like having video cameras in a bank. Very few bank robberies happen in the modern world because we've got video cameras that are really, really good. We've got a number of different ways of tracking everything from the car that pulls up to rob the bank to the robbers that go in. The truth is that, having that type of security really does prevent crime. Blockchain is a whole nother level of secured identification and so on and so forth. So one of the problems in the Middle East that's happening right now is they have a very big fake diploma scandal. And what that means is that for $120, you can purchase a diploma from New York University. Now, of course, it isn't really from NYU. It's a fake. But then you bring it to your employer in Saudi Arabia, and he has no way of knowing whether this is really a real diploma or not. I suppose they could request transcripts, but that's really difficult to do if you don't speak English. So they've had a lot of problems with falsification of educational records. Well, now the Cardano blockchain is offering to identify diplomas as being legitimate. And in fact, the University of Georgia has now adopted this technology so that every UGA diploma, a real one coming out of the university, is registered on the Cardano blockchain. So that if you do present a diploma to somebody, they can check it with a hash that's stored on the Cardano blockchain. And with your permission, your name would be on that stored diploma so that they actually know that, in fact, you did graduate from a program at UGA. And so this is an example of how all sorts of illegal activity can be prevented by a blockchain. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about with Cardano isn't just about its technology. So Cardano has really excellent technology, again, built from the ground up, much more powerful than Ethereum is now. And so it is, but it's not just about technology. Part of what makes Cardano special is the community, the Cardano community. And the Cardano community is perhaps the largest blockchain community in the crypto space. And what it is it's a number of people have been so touched, have been so personally moved at a moral, ethical level by what this blockchain has set out to do in terms of feeding the poor, getting medical records for people that wouldn't normally have centralized entities holding them, outreach in developing nations in Africa and also Central America. So many really, really well-minded and well-intentioned efforts to bring goods and services through blockchain technology to the poor of our world. It also includes things like verifying food shipments. Not everybody knows this, but there isn't actually a food shortage in the world. We actually have surplus food. And I hate to tell you that some developed nations, including the United States, actually waste food every year, huge quantities of it. And it's because we can't actually deliver it to the people who need it. Now, this is why currently good charities are so important. And I do encourage people to continue supporting their Christian charities who do the outreach work in Africa. As I've mentioned in previous shows, I happen to like Compassion very much, and I encourage people to research that charity before joining up with them. And in the future, Compassion and other organizations like it will almost surely be conducting business over the blockchain. They'll be tracking their food shipments through blockchain processes that ensure that the food that's shipped actually arrives at specific individuals who are identified on the blockchain who can confirm that, in fact, they received this particular package of food. And the reason that's important is that in war-torn nations that don't have secure governments, warlords are running the show. And they take control of the supply chain, they monopolize the food, they feed their soldiers first, and then they sell the food at very, very exploitative prices to people, many of whom can't afford it, many of whom actually starve. In the future, what will happen is that through tracking via blockchain, we'll be able to understand what's happening to that food, win, lose, or draw. We'll be able to follow it and identify people who are acting as warlords, and we'll be able to take certain kinds of action against them because certain goods and services that they want will also be dependent on the same blockchain. And as I've mentioned before, bad actors get punished. So eventually it'll be in everybody's best interest just to do what the original contract said, to carry out the contract so that your blockchain reputation is good, so that your digital identity is sound, so that you can continue to make plenty of money in the various transactions that will be occurring via cryptocurrency. And this is what is going to literally make the world a better place if the right people get into blockchain, become fluent in this new technology, and demand that this be the priorities of these projects.
Yeah, Alex, while you were talking about that, it really made me think about God's original mandate for humanity, which is stewardship of all the resources of the planet. The Bible typically says, that God gave us dominion over the earth. And what that really means is he gave us charge of all of the resources of the planet that we are supposed to be good stewards of. We're supposed to manage those resources well, and we're supposed to be sure that exactly what you're talking about, that we will support the, godly ethics of, taking care of our families, taking care of our communities, and being able to help people who are poor, people who are impoverished or lacking food, and be able to distribute those resources properly to those types of people. So it's very exciting to me because that makes me think, wow, that's actually a very highly technological, but definitely speaks directly to our Christian values and our ethics, what we want to do, and what we're actually commanded to do by God, that we're supposed to implement all these things and to manage resources well by being good stewards.
This is very much the way that I feel. And, as we move into the next phase of blockchain implementation, which is inevitable, again, no way to prevent it. What I'm hoping is that the crypto world will go from a place that was dominated by greed and people who are very excited about all the money that can be made when something goes worldwide very quickly. And that will still be part of our equation, something we'll probably take up in another show. But what I'm hoping is that a very strong sense of social duty, of Christian integrity, get projected into the space so that we can be sure that the blockchains are doing the right things for the right reasons. One of the founders of Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, talks very frequently about what his vision for blockchain is. And he's very charismatic, by the way, and very compelling. And this is one of the reasons that the Cardano community is as large as it is. I'm looking very much forward to there being a very substantial Christian contingent in the Cardano community. And part of the reason why is because I think that we'll be well received by the other members of the Cardano community, some of whom are probably atheists, some of whom are probably of all different faiths, okay? And some of whom are probably New Age spiritual. I've never completely understood what that means, but that's okay. But I think we're going to find a lot of common ground with these moral ideals and the aspirations that someone like Charles Hoskinson has stated for the Cardano blockchain to basically be that equalizing influence where, where the United States or Europe or Canada isn't the only place where you can be sure that a food shipment is going to end up where it's supposed to end up. Blockchain technology allows anybody with a smartphone to participate in the project of tracking absolutely anything. And they can also add their identity to that tracking equation anytime they choose to. They never have to, but if they want to, they can effectively prove, yes, I was with this shipment at this time, and it made it at least this far. And that kind of data, that kind of information can be used for the folks who are attempting to feed hungry people, for example, and in ways that we've just never had access to this level of quality or security of information before. And it's going to make a big difference to people on the ground. The other thing that we've talked about before is that it will also create an economy in nations that don't have stable currency or that don't have stable banking systems. You don't need, well, ADA is a stable currency. That's the currency for Cardano. You don't need a bank. You can use a Cardano wallet to conduct every type of banking service. And so suddenly you're going to have people able to actually create prosperity for themselves, their families, the people they care about. They can engage in certain kinds of political advocacy. They can call world attention to something like a stolen food shipment. They can prove that the food shipment was stolen. They can identify it in a particular place at a particular time, and they can they can alert people to the fact that, hey, this didn't go right, and it can be entirely traceable. And the people who did it can even be held accountable in new and innovative ways. For folks who are wanting to do the right thing in a lawful manner, the blockchain is an extraordinary opportunity. And so that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about Cardano. I'm not exclusively excited about Cardano, and I should probably, before we wrap up, just talk a little bit about that. There's no question that I am a Cardano bull. I do think it's a wonderful program. I do think it's going to change the world. I do think they have some of the smartest people in the world working on this project. And all of those things are things that I believe currently. It's also true that blockchain is an ever-expanding space. There are new players and new technologies that enter the space all the time. There are other good programs. I can't think of one that is better intentioned than Cardano. And I can't think of a program that has gone out of its way. The builders of Cardano have gone out of their way to collaborate with non-governmental organizations, also governments, particularly in developing nations, to provide improved social services for the citizens of these different countries. Remember that a government can never control a blockchain. The blockchain exists entirely independently of a government, but a well-intentioned government who actually wants to feed its people or wants to provide medical records for its people can certainly participate and contribute information to a blockchain that facilitates all the things that we just talked about. So I am bullish on Cardano, but I don't want to make it sound like that's the only neat project out there. I don't want to make it sound like it's the only promising layer one project out there. And one of the factors that will probably come into determining where we are in 10 years with regard to blockchain, the two components really are community and technology. With regard to community, Cardano's got a very big lead. It's very hard to think about another blockchain that has as many people involved already and as many people excited and passionate about making the projects work for many of the right reasons. I will openly admit there will be lots of new Cardano billionaires in the next 5 to 10 years. There's enormous amounts of money to be made, not just in investing in the cryptocurrency, but in investing in some of the other projects that will be built on the Cardano blockchain. And I'm sure we'll talk about those in a future show. But it's also true that there's at least as much excitement, if not more, about the really well-intentioned, positive benefits that the Cardano blockchain is literally designed from the ground up to bring to people all over the world. Now, the other factor, so that's community. Community, I'm going with Cardano. With regard to technology, Cardano technology is excellent. It's very well researched. Again, some of the smartest computer scientists in the world are involved in the project. And it's also true that new technologies are coming out all the time. And there probably is room in the blockchain space, in the crypto world, for a blockchain that has extra superior technology that's really, really on the cutting edge. It may coexist with the Cardano blockchain. It's possible that it might eventually replace it. I'm not sure. But technology is one of the things that we always have to keep an eye on as we look to anticipate the developments that are coming in the space. So maybe in our next show, we'll talk more about the really incredibly exciting technological developments that include Cardano and that also include some other blockchains that we'll talk about.
Well, that sounds great, Alex. I know I've already got several questions for you that I think we can hold off until next time. But as you were just talking about that, the wheel started spinning in my head, and I thought, well, you know, I'll definitely want to see what you can tell us about all that, the interrelationship between different blockchains and how that might work and that kind of thing. One other thing, just so you know, we do at some point, we should examine just the idea of getting involved with cryptocurrency on a basic level. I know I've spoken to some of my friends, and they are, you know, in essence telling me they know nothing at all about this. They're extremely interested, but they want to just learn a little bit about the basics of, you know, how do you just even start to get involved, and you know, the right places to look. As we've said, you know, there probably are a lot of scams out there, people that are just wanting to figure out a way to get your money, but we should at least discuss ways that people can get involved and in a, you know, fairly safe way.
I think that's, and you know, I just feel like this is such an important conversation that we're having. So often in human history, technology has happened and it's basically taken everybody by surprise. And, you know, sometimes that causes really negative effects. Sometimes, you know, you find that it leads to a moral decline. And I think that we've seen that happen in the United States, for example. And all it is that the change happened faster in the 1960s and 70s than the society was actually ready to handle. And now we have, all sorts of amazing things. We've got jet planes and computers that talk to each other and cell phones and all kinds of amazing technology. We also have social problems on a scale that we never would have imagined in the late 1960s. You know, we've got, you know, family structures that are suffering in communities all over the country. We've got, you know, large numbers of children being born out of wedlock. We've got, you know, all kinds of fundamental problems in our communities. And my heart goes out to those folks, by the way. I want to be clear that I'm very, very compassionate with anybody who's struggling in life right now. And it's so unfortunate with all this technology that we can't actually prevent that kind of, you know, struggle situation where people are struggling with addiction and homelessness, you know, crime and other problems. And what I'm so excited about this next phase is that because of existing technology like the internet, we may be able to anticipate this next technological change and actually make it work for us in ways that make sense for everybody, in a Christian way where everyone can benefit. And by the way, when I say everyone, I do mean everyone, whether you're a Christian believer or not. You know, if you're a Christian, that means we want it to work for everybody, okay? Christ didn't come here just for Christians. In fact, there were no Christians when Christ came. He came here for everybody. And sure. I want blockchain to benefit everybody. And I would love for our Christian friends to be able to help that happen this time. This time, I want the technology to be anticipated enough so that we can actually make decisions now that translate into a better world as a result of the technology, not just benefits for a few. So I want to just say thank you again, Pastor Rick, for having this conversation with me. And I'll really look forward to our next show.
Definitely, Alex. Thank you so much for all of your inputs. We really enjoy hearing all the exciting things you have to tell us about.